We cover the latest topics and trends making waves across the sport and chat with our industry's most prominent leaders, so your golf business stays one step ahead. Welcome to Golf Business Live, powered by Club Caddie. Here's NGCOA CEO Jay Karen and owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club and Vice President of the PGA of America, Don Rea.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, for a Friday edition. Don, it's Happy Hour Friday. Where the hell's my drink? Welcome to the April 2023 episode of Golf Business Live, powered by our friends at Club Caddie. Thank you, Jason, and all the folks at Club Caddie for sponsoring this show. Don, in a few minutes, we're going to bring on a special guest today, Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina District 1. Can't wait to bring her on the show. And, the audience, the ham to my egg here is Don Rea, Vice President of PGA, owner of Augusta Ranch in Mesa, Arizona. Don, as always, tell us what's new in Mesa, Arizona.
Well, it's, finally our season's coming to a little bit of a close. Obviously, we're kind of a January through March season, and it's been crazy. The weather was horrible. I mean, any other year, I'd probably be panicking. Right now, basically in Arizona market, as a golf course owner, at the end of April, you kind of look and see what you've got in your bank account, because after that, you're just going to lose money, and so you kind of know how much you're going to lose. But if you're going to, there's always these wants and needs. And if you really want to get to the wants, you got to have a little bit of extra money at the end of April. And I'll tell you what, this Top Tracer thing, I just actually did a little post on the Augusta Ranch Instagram page, because today, you just walk up and down there and you just see how it grows the game. But golf course is doing great despite the weather. We had the best actually beginning of the year in the history of the golf course. I can only attribute that to revenue management and Top Tracer for sure. The last 30 days, 350,000 range balls have been beat and hit on the range here at Augusta Ranch in the last 30 days. So I think we're going to get close to 4 million range ball hits this year, which just means people are out and coming in, and they're not by themselves. If you go to my IG page, or at least the Augusta Ranch one, you'll see the video I did today. We have 5 of the bays got rented out by a local group, and you see a group of 8 ladies just having lunch in one of the bays, and then you see some other people enjoying it. You see young, you see old. We're typically at a golf range on a golf course, it's individuals hitting balls and maybe they have their AirPods in. Not Top Tracer. It's a family affair. It's a friend affair. It's just a group of, you just don't typically do it by yourself, this is the best way, right, to get other people into the game. If you're interested in getting people to love what you love, this is the most unintimidating way to do it. And then I think it's on the backs of the shoulders of owners and PGA and LPGA golf professionals to build funnels or transitionary steps to get you from, T-ball to coach pitch to minors to majors, and whether that's putting and chipping leagues and 3-hole leagues or whatever it is. But, certainly as a vice president, just got back from Augusta National, and, what an amazing way to just showcase our sport once again. I think a great champion in John Rahm, and we met with all the PGAs globally. I mean, I could go on and on, Jay. It's been a hectic 3 months for me, and we're actually just about to dive into kind of our championship season with our PGA Works Collegiate Championship that's being played at Shoal Creek. But and all of that, if you saw my post on LinkedIn, I'm now part of the board of directors for the Arizona Lodging and Tourism Association. And, I don't know if I need something else to do, but I just, there were some final straws in a sense in my head as I worked with the Arizona Alliance for Golf and what's happening with water, and obviously the Colorado River and the upper and the lower and the compacts. And then obviously with President Biden, looks like they're going to have some federal presence there, which scares the heck out of me, because I think as states we're working together pretty well. And I think Kirsten Sinema is doing a good job to defend Arizona water rights. But when I looked at who was on the board for the AZLTA, I just didn't see anybody who really, had really a working hand knowledge of what golf does for the economy and the great stewards we are of water. So I just was like, man, if I'm going to tell people to do certain things, I've got to be it, right? And so it's just a bunch of more meetings, but I can't think of anything more important, because it affects our industry, it affects jobs. And so once again, I'll take a breath, but it's been a crazy 3 months, brother.
Well, man, good stuff. A couple things to unpack there. One, to hear about the activity at Top Tracer Range. To me, this is akin to There's a place up near Summerville, South Carolina, up here that we'll bring Nancy on a little bit. She's probably familiar with the town and the area, but called Stars and Strikes. You think about the bowling industry and look at this place. It's a bowling alley, Stars and Strikes. But you go there, I'm telling you what, all the activity is not on the bowling alleys. It's in the virtual reality games. It's in the escape rooms that they have. It's in the NOI that they're making off of everything but bowling has got to be making the business work. And so I'd love to see some NOI numbers from you, Don, at some point. Like, what is the green grass golf course? What is the net operating income off of that entire business versus if you just carved out the chop, tracer range, and revenue, the cost associated? What does the NOI look? And I can't wait to see what those figures look like, after a couple of years under your belt.
Yeah, we're doing a good job, in QuickBooks, kind of dividing it out. We've made Top Tracer its own department, right? So you got golf, you got agronomy, you got restaurant, and now, boom, we've got Top Tracer. So absolutely tracking that. Last year in the month of March, we made $15,000 in range revenue. This year, close to $50,000 in range revenue. Add on the food and beverage side of it, we're definitely going to have to buy a food truck because the poor kitchen's getting beat up. We started a beeper system in order to take the food out there and bring them in. All our servers are getting their 10,000 steps in, but dang it, man, we're growing the game and we're seeing people we've never seen before, and that just makes my heart full.
Well, it's awesome to hear that you're on the Arizona, Lodging and Tourism Association. And funny timing, next week I'm going to DC, taking off the NGCOA hat and putting on my board hat. I'm on the board of the U.S. Travel Association. Very same thing. A few years ago, I realized golf is nowhere in that ecosystem. At the table with the U.S. Travel Association, being a good citizen, but also representing the voice. And I'll be seeing Congresswoman Mace next week with the U.S. Travel Association hat on as we fly into Capitol Hill. So, just a couple of house items before we bring her on, because I want to get to her in a really rich discussion. Just a reminder to the NGCOA members and everybody tuning in, we've got National Golf Day. This will be my third trip to the Hill in a matter of like 6 weeks, but National Golf Day, May, I believe it's 10th is the day that we go to the Capitol, the 9th and the 10th. And we've got a rich agenda that we're going to be bringing to Capitol. I'm sure probably a couple hundred meetings talking about our agenda. And I'm going to get into some of those issues with Representative Mace here in a minute. So be sure we welcome all. We need foot soldiers on Capitol Hill when we go and show the strength of the golf industry and tell the good story. So check that out. You can go to ngcoa.org or you can go to golfcoalition.org as well to sign up for National Golf Day. Women's Golf Day is coming up in June. So check that out as well. We encourage facilities to sign up for that wonderful program. And the last thing I'll mention is TechCon, Golf Business TechCon is coming back this October 10th and 11th in Las Vegas. And we'll be hosting an amazing 2 days at the intersection of golf operations and technology, so we can keep operators staying forward focused. And then we'll actually have a water summit the day after with some allied organizations, talk about water access, Don, the Colorado Basin and everything that's happening there with the Colorado River. Our great members in Colorado have asked us to put together a water summit so we can discuss what has to be done in Colorado, Nevada, and other states, as well as what's happening in Arizona and California. So stay tuned for that, folks. So without further ado, Taylor, why don't we bring Nancy Mace onto the show? There she is. Hey, Nancy, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Jay. How are you?
Very good. I'm just so pleased to have you on the show. To our viewers, Representative Mace is a Low Country, South Carolina native, grew up in Goose Creek, which is just up the highway here from NGCOA's headquarters. And the quickest bio possible is that a great story. Nancy exited high school a little early and started working for Waffle House as a waitress off exit 203 here of Highway 26, and was the first female graduate of the Citadel in 1999. An amazing story there, very well known here in the Low Country, especially a businesswoman thereafter. I believe you were in real estate and marketing. And speaking of real estate, we've got a common friend, Michael Toscano, the owner of Le Farfalle. He said you helped him land that location where he is right now.
Yes, I sure did. He's a great chef. We're so grateful to have him in the Charleston market. He's brilliant. His octopus carpaccio, if you've never had it, is to die for. So go grab some.
And he just opened a second location, actually a sandwich shop down by MUSC. So you have to check that out as well.
Check that one out. Yeah.
And so you were a state representative for a while before running for Congress, and now you are in your second term in Congress. So what the viewers may not know is that Nancy was a neighbor of mine for many years out here on Daniel Island.
Most important part of my bio, we're former neighbors.
That's right. Yeah, and I will say Nancy's was a customer #1 of my son Max's budding cookie business for a number of years, and my other son Jonah had a brief business with a boiled peanut delivery service on Daniel Island, and you also got boiled peanuts from Jonah. So we appreciate patronizing the small businesses of Daniel Island.
We love small businesses in Charleston, especially.
Yes. Well, welcome to the show. We really appreciate it. So our audience, not only live, but we'll be distributing this show throughout social media over the next several weeks, is the golf industry, essentially. And, we're going to weave in and out of some issues here, golf industry issues and legislative issues and some politics as well. And I promise to leave Don some room for a question or two, because I just love these topics. I might monopolize them. But I got to ask you this. I'm going to kick off with saying, what are some of the biggest differences between what you expected that service in the House would be like versus what it's actually been?
Well, it's a bit of a mess, if you can imagine, and it's messier than I really thought it would be. I came from the state legislature where we had a supermajority of Republicans, but we had a habit of reaching across the aisle and working together to achieve something for the state of South Carolina. Congress isn't the same way. It's very divided. What you see on TV is often what's going on in the chamber. It's very difficult to find some of that common ground, which is why pretty much everything's come to a halt right now. You've got people who are unable or unwilling to work together on issues that are really important. And so that's been the biggest difference. That part's been disappointing, coming from the state legislature in South Carolina, where we really we've tried to work together, and then to go to Congress and see that it's just a very, very different. But I'm trying to play chess and not checkers. So I have a very productive office. Jay, you've seen our office. We're very productive legislatively. There are members of Congress that go to DC and have never filed a bill. Imagine that. Your job is to legislate, and you go there and you just vote against everything. I mean, you don't really do much else. And so that part's been a little surprising to me as well. But we're productive from a legislation standpoint. Obviously, all the constituents that we have in our district, they're #1. If you call or email our office, you better get a call back within 24 hours. I'm going to haze my staff. So we're very attuned to what's going on locally. We also weigh in on local issues more than maybe most members of Congress, because I want people to know I've got my pulse on the community and what's going on, that I'm willing to step in and give a voice to the people that I represent, even when it might be unpopular. And so I speak out on a number of different topics, no matter how sensitive they might be.
So, representing constituency and interfacing with constituency is job #1, but much of your job is interfacing with industries, right? And so in that case, you've recently formed the Golf Caucus in the House, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, the state of South Carolina, we're often in the top 5 for international states to golf in around the world. We're one of the best places for golf. We've got over 350 golf courses. Over 35 of those are in the Lowcountry where we live, Jay. It has been a huge boom for the state. It's over $3 billion in economic revenue, almost 40,000 jobs. There are over 2 million rounds of golf that were played in the state of South Carolina. We've had PGA tournaments come through right after the Masters. Don, you were in Augusta this past week. I was there for the par 3 game day, but right after the Masters, everybody goes down to the RBC Heritage, including John Rahm, because he made that commitment before the Masters, and they go play golf for a couple of days down at Hilton Head Island, which is where I'm headed to tomorrow. But we're a huge golf state, and it produces jobs. It is it's great for our economy, the revenue that we get from it, and it's important. Honestly, when COVID-19 happened, one of the best things you could do was to get outside and golf. If you didn't have a boat, most people don't have boats, but we got a lot of boats in South Carolina, but you could get outside and play golf and exercise and get fresh air and not get COVID. The beauty of the sport is that it can do a lot for you from a business standpoint, from an economic standpoint for the state, and you can get outside and enjoy the beautiful environment and weather that we have in South Carolina.
I didn't even give you those talking points. You're fantastic. But so I
have a great staff. They're very good. But But it's important that we grow the sport. My kids love to golf. I'm an okay golfer, I will tell you. I don't have a handicap. One of the last times I took my kids out to play 9 holes, I shot a 90, and my oldest shot 2 over par. So I'm great at driving the golf cart and watching golf and going to the Masters and the Heritage. But we love the sport as a family. It's been a great thing for us as a family to get out and do together. And so we've enjoyed watching our kids growing up and golfing. It's been wonderful for our family too.
So on the federal level, you formed the caucus, I think, with a Democrat from California from the Monterey area, right?
Yes. Pebble Beach area. And we're trying to grow with more members of Republicans and Democrats as well. And also address the issues I mentioned. We talk to industry folks all the time, but one of the things that people don't realize, and you all sort of alluded to it earlier in the show, but the environment is important, protecting our environment for our golf courses, water issues for golf courses, particularly out west. We don't have as much of an issue right now in the current environment in South Carolina, but also many people may not realize the dependency that golf courses have on the visa program that we have in our country. We don't have enough visas, and it's a often seasonal type of environment in South Carolina. So for 9 months out of the year, those H-2B visas really do come in handy in the food and bev portion for our golf courses. And especially when I go down to the Heritage Golf Tournament tomorrow, many of the workers that we'll see at the tournament are going to be there on a temporary H-2B visa. And that's something that I learned, that I didn't have that knowledge or data before as a state lawmaker, but now as a member of Congress and seeing how the federal government interacts at the state and local level for organizations, businesses, and industry. That was a real eye-opener for me, is to understand how that issue affects many, many businesses, particularly tourism, hospitality, golf, et cetera, in the state of South Carolina.
One other eye-opener I think that we've probably put in front of you is this issue with the tax code and how golf is identified among other industries as that we don't qualify for disaster relief or economic stimulus legislation oftentimes. In fact, Tim Scott's own Opportunity Zone Act, buried in there is a reference to the golf industry and others that don't qualify for this stuff. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about
That's great.
soon is to get golf off of this list, modernize the tax code essentially, this is 50-year-old language. We got to fix this.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that.
Well,
the IRS is quite the mess right now, but yeah, absolutely.
And one other thing that you and I talked about, I guess a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, that I want to kind of let the golf industry know about that's watching is, and I had my ASAE hat on that day, the American Society of Association Executives. Yeah. So for the folks at home, the Association for People Who Run Associations, we were there talking about expanding the use of 529 college savings accounts so that Americans can use that funding, that pre-tax funding, not just on a 4-year college education, but professional certifications, right? PGA membership, GCSA membership, military personnel that seek all of those professional certifications to be able to use that to basically pave the way to more education across all economic spectrum in America. So we appreciate you.
And that's a great topic for sure, because as college has gotten more expensive, it's more expensive because the government has been subsidizing it at the federal and the state level. And so for that reason, it's gotten far more expensive. But we realize that there are many jobs out there that you don't need a 4-year college degree, but getting certified to do work is really an important message to take to our kids out there. And knowing that, we've got a member of our family right now who's a programmer, started really full-time working when he was in high school. He's 21 now. He makes as much as I do as a member of Congress. And I'm 45 and I've been around the block. I've done a lot, seen a lot, worked a lot. He makes as much money as I do. No 4-year college degree. But certifications using those 529 plans, that would be a great way to sort of push that. And I don't know about y'all, but every time I call the plumber, it costs $200 or $300, and my plumber vacations in Cape Cod. So there's so many vocations out there that this provides so much opportunity for our future generations too. It's a great thing to champion.
Yeah, especially as we try to improve the funnel into our industry workforce as well. Yeah. This could be a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
Don, I don't want to steal the show, but what questions do you have burning for Ms. Mace?
I do have a good one, Representative Mason. Just thanks for being on and everything you do. I wish we could just have about 200 more of you, because you just get it. I really appreciate that. So something, I was on the NGCOA board, and and obviously learned a love for this and the importance of it through the NGCOA, going to National Golf Day, and really treasuring some of those meetings I would have with hopefully the member, but sometimes it was a legislative director or legislative assistant, in your office or anybody else's office.
Mm-hmm.
PGA members haven't typically been involved in National Golf Day, and I think some of them are worried that they don't know the issues very well. But man, I know that like the first time I met Representative Biggs, we just had a connection right away because I just started asking him if he played golf, and if not, why. And all of a sudden, I was a real constituent, and all of a sudden he was listening to me, and I could hand him the folder of the issues. But all of a sudden, he knew that I was just trying to make a living and send Katie to college. Give me a little bit of advice. Say a PGA member who maybe doesn't feel like they're, maybe they don't feel like they're smart enough to talk about it, or they're educated on the issues, or whatever it might be. That first 5 minutes, if I get an opportunity with an LA, an LD, or the member themselves, what is something they can do to kind of bridge that gap and let them know I'm not a paid lobbyist. I'm just a person who's trying to make a living. And so what would they say? How do I bring that guard down if I know they don't play golf or whatever, but I want them to understand that golf is the engine for good, right?
Yeah.
So what should they say the first time they meet somebody who maybe isn't on that fence, or on the right side of the fence?
Yeah, it's about making that connection. It's about building relationships, and nothing in Washington moves quickly. And so you got a lot of time to be able to do that. And you don't have to know the issues. You can leave that discussion. You can leave the binder with the LD or the LA to dive into it deeper from a policy standpoint. But for me, it is about meeting my constituents and getting a sense of what their concerns are from a very high level, because I will not get down into the weeds. I'll allow my legislative staff, I have a large team, to dive into those sorts of issues. And at the end of the day, I'll have the final say once we get briefed on everything from all sides. But it's really about telling your story more than anything. And stories are very, very powerful. How you got to where you are, why you support the game of golf, what impact it's had on your life or your family or your state or your community as a business person, not as a golfer. But Don, you're a small businessman, right? You're a business owner. You create jobs, you generate revenue for the state of Arizona in a business way. And so you're just telling your story and sharing those experiences with members of Congress, because you've got guys and gals up there who've never worked on a business, never owned one, never signed the front of a paycheck. They may not know what that's like. And just making that connection and sharing your story can be a very powerful way to impress upon a member of Congress that this issue, guess what? It's important for us. And this is why.
That's great.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let me ask you this. What small business policy or legislation do you guys have on your radar right now?
Oh gosh, I have a lot of legislation on the radar, excuse me. And I file probably 2 or 3 bills a week. I apologize, frog in my throat. But I file 2 or 3, sorry. My kid's passing me a water bottle. Hang on. In the car. But from a business perspective, obviously, I am looking at what the future might entail with regards to spending and inflation. And what are we doing for the supply chain? So as you all know, running a golf course, you're going to have products in your golf store. You're going to have food in the kitchen, et cetera. The supply chain is really important to small businesses. It's important to tamping down on some of the inflation issues we have. There's no one size or one pill to solve inflation. It's a number of different things, but the supply chain has really exacerbated it. Just last week, I read an article about the Long Beach port that had shut down for a few hours or temporarily last week a couple of times. When we shut our ports down, we stop doing those gate turns, then things cost more. Things are missing on the shelves. It does affect small businesses. Taxes are another issue for small businesses. Some of the tax cuts that we had in the past expired this year. And so if you want to tackle inflation and then tackle the growing expenses for small businesses, then maybe we should look at tax cuts, particularly for those that are job creators, but for everybody across the board. There's not a single tax hike that I like. I've never voted, knock on wood, to raise anyone's taxes ever as a state lawmaker, as a member of Congress. But lowering taxes is a lot of things. It's good for small businesses, and it's good for the economy, and it's good to help reduce some of the inflationary issues that we have right now. Those are really big things. The other thing, because I'm in South Carolina, we rely on tourism, hospitality, and our golf courses, are the H-2B visa issues that we have. We have these arbitrary caps. They're not really based on any sort of algorithm that makes any sort of sense. And so that limits our ability for businesses, small businesses, to hire seasonal employees if they're in a seasonal industry.
Wow, that's really good stuff. Where do you stand on the daylight savings time and because the NGCOA has been in favor of eliminating daylight savings time for our businesses? It just opens up more sunshine, more hours, more play.
I'm all for that. I'm in agreement with you on that, man. If I could legislate, and my fiance, he makes a joke with me. He's like, "Can you please file a bill that will make the weather 70 to 80 degrees in Charleston year round?" So if we can get rid of daylight savings and fix the weather, it'd be a perfect world. But I'm in agreement with you. Problem is, everyone was in agreement, both in the House and the Senate, and it just passed out of one chamber and sat in a drawer, passed out of the Senate and sat in a drawer in the House last session. And no one did anything with it. That might be the one thing that both chambers could pass this year, because we're not going to do anything else. We're not addressing any issues that are worthwhile to small business owners right now. Don't get me started on the budget or anything with the debt ceiling vote, because we don't have a plan for that yet. But that might be the one thing we could do. Maybe that would be the only thing we could do this year in a bipartisan manner, as crazy as things have gotten so far, just a few months in.
So, recently I watched an interview with you on PBS that was done, and you said that you felt like you're a caucus of one in the House.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I am a conservative. I believe in the Constitution. I consider myself a constitutional conservative. I'd even go as far as to say I'm small L libertarian, very fiscally conservative, socially moderate. And I will speak out on issues in many ways when Republicans are often silent. It's a very lonely existence. And I represent, as you know, Jay, our district isn't red, it's not blue. It's very purple. We have a lot of people that are very independent minded. They might vote Republican or Democrat traditionally, but we have independent voters in our district outnumber Republicans and Democrats by double digits. They are by far the number one voting bloc in our district in South Carolina. So my perspective is a little bit different than some others. When abortion issues come up, I'm pro-life, but I want to talk about issues in a way that are compassionate towards women and balance the right to life with women's rights. They had this crazy ruling last week in Texas where this unelected judge made a decision about medication that was approved by the FDA. What a lot of people may not realize is that same medication is used for women suffering through miscarriages, or they're suffering through other diseases like Cushing's disease or cancer. That medication is actually used for cancer patients. And so educating people and talking about things in a way that are more passionate. Same thing, Jay, as you know, a week ago, we had a mass shooting in our district, another one. And we're seeing mass shootings on the news all the time, but Republicans by and large want to be quiet on some of these issues. And so we don't have to be. We shouldn't be scared to talk about things that are sensitive, as long as we're being reasonable and responsible and respectful. There's so much that we can do to help our country and help our communities, but we're often just afraid to, because we're afraid of our reelection. We're afraid of being primaried or losing our reelection. And I just can't sit idly by and watch that happen. And so I've been very vocal in a lot of touchy subjects, and it's important for me to represent the values of our district and our state, and do it in a way where I'm not going to operate out of fear. And it is very, very lonely at times. And I love being an independent voice, but it's tough when you're the only one, when you feel like you're the only one.
Who else do you think in Washington does not operate from fear? Have you because I guess like is going to recognize like. Do you see anybody else that's just putting fear behind them and trying to make things happen?
There are a handful of people on both sides of the aisle. Every time I work with a Democrat, like I do a lot of cybersecurity work too. I'm like an inch deep and a mile wide. I work on a lot of different issues, but Ro Khanna out of California, he and I have done a number of cybersecurity bills. Every time we do one together, he gets attacked by the left for working with a Republican. I get attacked by the right for working with a Democrat. And yet the president has signed multiple bills that he and I have worked on together that keep our country safer. And that's what, at the end of the day, really matters, is the safety of our communities and ensuring that we're the most prosperous, most economic friendly, tax friendly, family friendly country in the world, so we can continue to be the great leaders that we are around the globe. And that's what matters at the end of the day.
One of the other issues that I'd say maybe goes along with the little L libertarian, lowercase L libertarian, is on marijuana and cannabis. And I'm coming at this from the golf industry side, even though there's some intersection there, and that a lot of golf course owners have a lot of land, and it could be alternative use of land, it could be growing and harvesting and so forth in many states. But talk to us about why so many are silent or against it today. Is it a moral thing? Is it just kind of hung up from what was the reefer madness from 80 years ago?
They're afraid. Yeah, they're afraid. I mean, the whole thing about cannabis is that cannabis prohibition was started out of racism. They used it as a wedge to go into Black and brown communities to investigate them and throw them in jail. And then today, even in South Carolina, if you're Black or brown, you're 4 times as likely to be arrested for cannabis than if you're white. Those are just the statistics, unfortunately. But this has been a very long, painful, and expensive war on a plant. It saves lives. I mean, if you're a cancer patient and you need a 4 milligram gummy to get through chemotherapy for the day, but then by God, you should have access to that. And there was a very interesting poll that came out this week, Jay, in South Carolina by Winthrop University. And it showed that the vast majority, I think it was like 76 or 77% of South Carolinians across the state supported medical cannabis. And even more surprising for me, because I know in our district, it's this way, but I think it's even higher now than the last time I polled it. But 56% of South Carolina residents support adult use cannabis, basically recreational, for any reason. And so what that says to me is that our state loves and respects freedom and liberty for all. And you see that on a number of different issues. Gay marriage is very similar, interracial marriage, very similar numbers. And so even in conservative, bright red South Carolina, they love freedom and they don't want to restrict people and such. They don't want the heavy hand of government interfering in their businesses or in their personal lives. And that's what I've seen from a lot of the data recently. And it's been interesting to see that change over the last decade, but there are officials who are afraid. They call it a gateway drug. It's not. They're just set in the old ways of doing things. And that's why Republicans lose the popular vote every presidential cycle. It's why we can only get into the White House, win the White House by the Electoral College. It's why we didn't win as many seats in November. Because of some of these issues, we're just unwilling to get modern on. The modern conservative does not exist, and we need to get there. We need to get there fast.
Wow. Don, that's a lot. Yeah. That's good stuff.
It is good stuff. And I'll switch gears just a little bit because I'm just digging your leadership and your style. I mean, you get stuff done. Something I started when I became the secretary of the PGA, and 2 years later, you're the vice president where I sit now. 2 years later, I'll be the president. But I've had monthly meetings we have 41 sections, Nancy, and they're they're elected by the members of that section, and they have committee structures. But what I've been trying to, kind of coach up our secretaries and vice presidents is like, let's get something done. Let's put a motion on the table. And if it fails, it fails. But let's make a motion. Let's get a second. Let's discuss it. And if it passes, it passes. You seem to get stuff done. And even though the PGA, and they're on our little section, some want to do stuff for veterans, somebody want to do for the kids, and some for families, and some about water. And, there's so many different issues. And even in those small little micro areas, you got to come across the lines. How do you do that? Yeah. If I'm chairing a committee, so I'm just a young golf professional, and I'm chairing, the employment committee for the Southwest section, and I want to get consensus so that we can get a motion to the board. How do you do that as a really good leader to get change happening instead of talking about it until the next meeting, right? What do you do that's so successful?
Right. Well, like we talked about earlier too, those relationships, those connections that we're making with people of influence or people that have a vote or have a say, those relationships are important. And I was in actually in sales, real estate, commercial real estate sales before I came to Congress, but it is about sales, whether you're selling a policy, selling an idea or an event, an idea for that, you've got to persuade people. And number one, you've got to be confident is the first thing. You got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. But also having the courage to forge relationships, to forge uncomfortable conversations, and speaking up when you need to, and saying, hey, my door is always open to have this conversation. And my line to people when I'm trying to get something across the finish line in Congress is that I'm willing to work with anyone who's willing to work with me. I don't care if you have an R or a D by your name. I don't care if you're colored purple. It just doesn't matter, or blue or green. It's just, we're here to do a job, and I want to work, and I want us to be successful, whatever that looks like. And relationships are very important. They're important in networking when you own a business. They're important in sales. And they're important when you're trying to push something across the finish line like you're doing in those committees and subcommittees. It's very similar.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me because what I see, and maybe you've experienced this, maybe, of what you're experiencing at the national level is really just a symptom of what's happening at the states, maybe even down to the cities, maybe even to the city councils, where there's really no training ground of leadership and reaching across the aisle. And this is how it works. Instead, it's just, well, this is what the old guard did. And now you build up a bunch of leaders who really aren't prepared once they get to the government level.
Right.
And I mean, do you think, is that anywhere in the future where you train up some city councils to actually think independently and reach across the aisle, even though you have your passion projects? It seems like it's missing. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, there are a lot of associations and groups that try to do some of that, but there's nothing that beats face to face. And honest to God, I blame social media for a lot of this because we've lost our ability to really be required to see somebody face to face or have a real conversation over the phone. Zoom is great. I mean, that's been a benefit during COVID, but we've lost our ability to build real bona fide relationships in person. And we have all these apps and technology, and they're very suitable for efficiencies, creating efficiencies. There's a lot of value and benefit, but nothing can replace the genuine friendship that people have. And I will tell you, I think COVID-19 also made it more difficult because we were all stuck at home and couldn't leave our houses, and we were unable to build and forge new relationships or continue relationships. It was really difficult on our country and our kids. But you just got to take the keyboard away, go have a beer or a cocktail. It is happy hour somewhere, right? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. But those things are important, and we sort of lost sight of that. And the other thing is that, both sides, they just have dug their heels in because they can raise a lot of money on the political side. The crazier things that you say, the more tweets that you'll get, the more people will like it, the more money you raise, the more TV interviews quote you or that you get invited to. And this popularity contest is driving the conversation rather than real results. And that's really what's missing. We'll get through this one day, but is it a year from now? Is it 10 years from now? I don't know the timing of it. I think 24 will be a real eye-opener for folks on both sides of the aisle because no one knows what's going to happen yet. And I think that'll be a real clear determination on the direction of the country in 24.
Okay, Nancy, I've got an idea for you in the Golf Caucus. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to thread Don's topic of how do you get people to work together? How do you get things done with the Golf Caucus? Don's going to back me up on this one. There is no better activity on this earth than golf that connects people. Right? That golf ball can humble a Democrat as quickly as it can humble a Republican. And you spend 4.5 hours together really getting to, I'm telling you, you get to know strangers. And by the end of 4.5 hours, you're lifelong friends. Nothing does it like golf. I'm saying let's use the Golf Caucus to bring together people from across the aisles and play golf together.
We need a golf tournament, Jay. We need to do a Republican versus Democrat, or we can do a mix up, but some type of golf tournament where we can have adult beverages and golf and have a meal and laugh at ourselves and humble ourselves with that ball and enjoy the game of golf. Those kinds of events, they are very important to building, again, relationships with others to do what we've been asked to do. We need to do more than push a button voting yes or no when we're in the chamber. I mean, people in businesses are really struggling, and they want us to work our asses off and not just get on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make.
All right. I got an idea, Jay. Hold up.
All right.
I'm following up on your idea. When we do this golf event, guys, we do it like PGA Junior League. We've got the jerseys on, your name's on the back. You play it in 3-hole flags. It's a scramble. So if you're not good, you might still make the putt. Let's do a Golf Caucus PGA Junior League. Whoever wants to play together.
Scramble. I'm in for the scramble.
Yes, scrambles are the best. You never know when you're going to make a putt. So I'm telling you, the jerseys would be cool, Jay. Numbers, names. Cool. Mm-hmm. That might get a tweet. Nancy, I don't know, but it'll be a good tweet.
We should do it. That would be awesome. I'd be all on board with it. It would be awesome to do that.
All right, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna put R's and D's on the same team. So that they're playing together and working together. There's something here, guys. I think
reading putts together, living in harmony. Come on, we're gonna fix the country with the Golf Caucus golf tournament.
One putt at a time.
One putt at a time, Nancy. It's gonna be amazing.
Look at this. I'll book the tournament today. We got people already jumping on board to help. And you know what?
It already started.
We can make it part of National Golf Day next year, or find a time when,
Oh, that's even more perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, that's even better.
I love it.
Jerseys. Well, it'll be awesome.
Nancy, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate all of your support of the golf industry with the Golf Caucus and the issues. You are in line with our issues, and we appreciate that. And, we will be expecting more engagement with you in this industry as the years come by. So thank you so much.
Of course. I look forward to seeing you, Jay, in the office. We'll see you, Don. Come visit sometime.
I will. Hey, Rock Lucas is a good friend. I'll definitely be out there. I've seen that building. It's amazing. But thanks for all you're doing. And I'm telling you, I'm going to get a bunch of PGA golf professionals out there to help the cause, because we do have great stories and we just don't tell them. And to your point, you said today, tell the story, build a relationship, and we can change a lot of things just with that. So thank you for that advice.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody at home, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you. I think next month is the third year anniversary of the start of Golf Business Live. So we're gonna have a special 3-year anniversary show next month. Nancy, it's great seeing you. I'll see you in the district, and I'll see you at the Capitol.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Take care. All right, bye, everybody.